Good evening, and welcome once again to the U Talk Show, where we are going to give you a sexy, saucy teaser of the sort of insight that we're hoping to bring to the upcoming Psych Week with a psych adjacent question. See, the thought occurred after the last episode that politics really attracts and, more than that, consistently rewards a very specific type of person. And while your first thought may be that that sort of person is someone with no morals, that's not really the case. However, a lot of successful people with no morals share a lot of common traits with very successful people who do have morals, so it's not surprising. But I thought that we should examine what sort of personality actually thrives in the chaos of politics. Carl told you last recording about his uncle. His uncle probably doesn't have what it takes to sit in the House of Reps. That is what it is. His uncle's probably not going to make it to be prime minister without decorating the wall with his brains one day. The normal person crumples under the stress of being responsible for a group of people far larger than just themselves. Any of you who've had bad managers in a workplace might see where I'm going with this. Kyle, I know you've done a little more time in the retail mines than I have. Tell me about some of your managers and whether you think they do okay in politics. I'm serious. I'm
Oh, okay,
serious.
okay.
I want you to
Actually,
tell me about the managers you've run into.
all right, all right. So I've worked for a political party,
Mm-hmm.
but I did like as part of my contract, I was not allowed,
Non-disparagement clause.
basically, yeah. So essentially I
Pretty
can't,
standard these
use
days.
what I know there to to hurt that particular party. Um so like
From what
without
you've said to
mention
me in
let's
private,
wait,
I'm
hold
just
up.
going to say that it sounds like they didn't need too much help being hurt.
Well, yeah. Okay, so I won't mention the party name, but I will just say that um, it very much the whole time I was working there, just it felt like the direction was wrong, and it's one of those things where it's just like they're not suitable because they think in such a way that just doesn't it doesn't lend itself towards being able to solve problems and overcome great challenges.
I've had management like that
Yeah,
even
the
more
word I'm looking
recently, so
for,
I get it.
yeah, I've got it. The word I'm looking for is they think about the more superficial aspects rather than the substance behind it that makes up the building blocks of good success within politics.
Yeah, it's like trying to hire someone to build you a super fancy, super swish new website. All of the people in the warehouse are not
Mm.
productive because they're still using 1980s computers running MS-DOS.
Yeah, it's like that. That's a very, very, one-to-one analogy almost. Um, and so yeah, so that, there was that. I worked at KFC. Um,
Yeah, would your managers at KFC, or maybe the franchise owners, if you'd known them, do you think that they would have been the sort of people who might have been
so I did meet
driven
the
to
store
take up
owner.
politics?
Yeah, so I did meet the store owner briefly. He seemed all right. I met him I think twice. The store manager, who was the store manager right up until not long before I left, he actually wouldn't be half bad. He would be all right. He was like when something went wrong, he was a calm guiding hand. Like at that time in my life, I was basically afraid of my own shadow. It's kind of funny because I had like infinite confidence, and then like life went to hell, zero confidence for years, afraid of my own shadow, and then it like
Infinite
shot up
confidence
again.
is just part of being a teenager, though.
Oh well,
That's not atypical. Don't flatter
well, see, this
yourself.
was in my teen years though. This was like
Yeah,
it was like 15. Like I stopped being really confident around 14 to 18 or whatever, or 19, and then all of a sudden, it came back up. But essentially, he was a calm guiding hand. The if something went wrong, he was like, all right, just relax and just tell me, think, what is it you were doing? I'd tell him. What is it you needed to do after that? I'd tell him. And then, okay, what about after that? And then I'd tell him. And I'd have the next three things figured out. And all he did was just guide me through that process of just thinking, what
just
do I need to
reminding
do?
you of your
Then
own
what? Then what?
capabilities.
Yeah, yeah. And it was really simple. But I've come to realize a lot of people don't do that very well. Another manager that I had there who ended up becoming the store manager after that guy, complete opposite. Something went wrong, she would get agitated. The more wrong it went, yell, swear, um, lost her shit essentially. And like for me back then, since I was afraid of my own shadow, I that just caused me to panic. So,
Mm.
very much not conducive. I wouldn't want her in politics in a million fucking years. Um, like then
I'm sorry, I'm
there's
just imagining the racist one, the redhead. Um
from where?
Pauline Hanson. I'm just imagining Pauline Hanson managing a KFC. All the
I mean,
nuggets are on fire. Please explain.
that's I mean I mean, look, it's not close, but it's not too far off either, you know?
I was just thinking because do you remember Tantex Holdings in Queensland going before the
I've
court?
got no idea what you're talking about. Didn't hear about
Okay,
this at all.
so Tantex Holdings owned several McDonald's in Brisbane and the sort of greater Brisbane area. Um, the franchisee, who was Miss Tanya Mantayat Mulcahy, was known for being highly mercurial among her staff and
Mercurial.
demanding.
Sorry, a word that most people, including myself, can understand.
You said you wanted me to swear less.
The word so terrible is what you're saying? Terrible among her
No,
staff?
no, terrible doesn't really cut it. There
Okay.
are many things that are terrible, but in any case, she was known for demanding the impossible, being very rude, not letting people have like a drink of water while they were working, that sort of stuff. And she got smacked the heck down in court after the union brought a case against Tantex. But see,
Sounds unsurprising.
I'm looking at her and I'm thinking that she is absolutely the sort of person who would do well in politics, not because she
Mm.
has any sort of sound moral character, but because
She's
she can just
ruthless.
keep up this psychological pressure. Yes,
Yeah.
ruthless.
See, that's actually, you know what, that I think is really the answer to the question, is that if you're ruthless, you will make it in politics. And I've actually been thinking about this for a number of years now. The
Except Clive Palmer wasn't ruthless. Clive Palmer
Yeah, but he
was
failed.
ruthless and
Uh,
failed. So it's not just ruthlessness. There needs to
well,
be a
he
certain
was also
intersection of
incompetent.
ruthlessness and inspiring confidence.
Confident. Well, see, okay, see, I wouldn't call it inspiring, but he certainly was confident in himself,
Yeah, but that's what I
completely
mean.
unfoundedly.
He couldn't convince other people that they should be confident in him.
Yeah. See, see that. So I think there's a third aspect though, because I think you need competence as well, a certain level of competence. Then again, I mean, if you think about it, a lot of people like Scott Morrison was prime minister, and he was the most incompetent friggin' knobhead in the nation. So, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you don't
Legal
need,
reasons, that was a joke.
for legal reasons, that was my opinion and my opinion alone. Does not reflect
No, no,
necessarily
no. It
upon
was
the
also
absorption.
my opinion, but just.
Hey, look, we're speaking as to our opinion here and nothing else. So, we're not making absolute statements of character, just giving our opinion.
Yeah.
Um, but there's one question because we haven't got long left. We've got a couple of minutes.
Yeah, we've
And
got
there's
about
one,
3 minutes.
yeah, there's one question that because essentially, those who can project confidence and those who
Mm,
can be ruthless in their actions succeed in politics. But
yep. But
and
I
that's
think
that,
there's one
that's who
more thing
politics
to
is
it
geared towards rewarding. Yeah, go on.
because, well, I sort of hinted at this lot in the last recording, and it's sort of what I want to go for is that the sort of people who think that they can make the world a better place, or if we want to be very cynical, the sort of people who believe that they can shape the world in their image.
Mm,
Um, they need to be able to convince other people that their image is correct. Uh,
mm.
but also, there is a certain level of megalomania that exists there. You have to have
See, this is what I worry
a
about
certain
with myself though,
ability to
because
believe that you know what's going on in a way that other people do not.
yeah,
It rewards those sort of what we'd call type A personalities.
I forget what the types are, but I think I get what you're saying. And this is something that's very much been in the front of my mind in regards to the idea of me getting in politics. Um, because I worry, because it's like, hey, I see this way that the media works, and I wonder if I'm crazy because nobody else seems to see it until I really take them through like an hour process of talking to them about it and explaining every aspect, and then they're like, oh, okay, no, yeah, I get that, and then like it's like if it wasn't for the fact that there were a few people who were willing to go through the hour process, I would still be wondering whether I was crazy. And then apply that to getting into politics and nation building and changing the nation. Um, and it like the idea of that is worrying because it's like, well, does it take that level of arrogance and kind of I wouldn't quite use the word mega the word
Megalomania.
yeah, that's the word. I wouldn't quite use that word myself, but I do get where you're coming from with that. And I kind of worry, like, is that the kind of person I have to be? Because in the like there's the kind of person I am, but then there's also you know who am I willing to be,
It's
and
okay.
what am
It's
I
the
willing to
power of
be?
positive projection, right, Kyle? What you got to do is you got to wake up every morning and you've got to do your yoga. And in downward dog position, you have to feel the sunlight shine on your butthole. And then you have to go punch the sun in the face.
Just,
It's okay. If you're willing to do the yoga and feel the sunlight shine on your butthole, you might have a solid shot at like a seat in one of the sort of hippie commune areas of Australia.
see,
But for
okay,
those of
see,
us
the
in the
thing is
real
though,
world, a certain amount of ruthlessness is needed. It's like,
yeah,
does
well, that's
politics make people worse, or does it just attract the worst that we have to offer?
well, that's the big question is, how ruthless do I have to be? Like, take Jodie McCabe. She would have been a
Mm-hmm.
wonderful Premier of New South Wales. Absolutely
Mm.
wonderful. One of the nicest people in the world, the kind of person who really should have, she didn't even get to go to an election. She didn't even get to date, like Labour didn't even get to take her, the woman with the most integrity in Australia, I would argue. She reported members of her own party to ICAC because they were being corrupt. And she paid a huge political price from it. And the fact that she even made it back into New South Wales Parliament was a miracle. And then made it into the leadership position was a miracle. And that they couldn't keep it going for long enough was absolutely sad. But what how it relates to this is that part of the speculation about the reason why she couldn't keep it going is because she was just too nice a person. She wasn't ruthless enough. She wasn't, she couldn't be Machiavellian enough. She couldn't think in that way. And
Yeah, but
what
the
scares
other
me,
problem
let me finish,
is,
really let me
mm,
finish, because this is the crux of what I really want to say, is what scares me is I've learned to think in that way. And that scares me because the idea of being that kind of person, I don't like that. I don't like the idea of being that kind of person. And so I have to
yeah,
somehow square this. And how do I do that?
I guess that ties nicely into the wordplay, the shameless pun I was going to make. And
Let me hear it.
I'm just thinking it's the same thing that makes this Machiavellian politician is what goes into a bad sword. All edge, no point.
See, I'm learning to forge swords, so I actually like the analogy, but I imagine for somebody
Hmm.
else that might be really
Like
cringy.
every single there are very few sword designs I can think of that have been effective in combat that haven't had a taper down to a point at
Hmm.
some point, because everything else assumes that you're going to get in range and you're going to stay in range long enough to just behead a bastard. No, sometimes you just, need to wound them a
Hmm.
little bit.
Yeah,
You don't need to kill everyone, you just need to win the war. And yeah,
yeah.
it's the all edge no point thing. You can be this dark, broody Machiavellian bastard who is obsessed with success at all costs, and when it comes down to it, have no direction, no idea of
You know
what
what?
you want your
In my
country to be anymore because you've just been pursuing power for the longest time. I
and
think the key is that there has to be more than power. It has to be power with a constructive purpose.
and in my opinion, that sounds like exactly what Scott Morrison was, and look where that led the nation.
I don't know, it made some people very rich.
It made the rich even richer, and it made everyone else poorer. But with that, we'll have to end it because we're about to run overtime right now. So thank you for
And we don't want to
watching.
risk accusing Albo of not having a point because, he might actually be able to bring us back.
Uh, we'll probably talk about that in a future episode because I have some
Good
opinions
night.
about that. Have a good one.
Night all.